Hi, I'm Mark Mazzaferro, Public Information Officer for the City of Vacaville, and this is another episode of Fire Facts with Fire Chief Brian Preciado. And with us today we have a guest, a firefighter paramedic by the name of Matt Moreno. Matt, thanks for being on the show with us today, and Chief, as always, thank you for being here.
Sure.
So Matt's here for a very specific reason. We have addressed this question before, and I'm sure we'll address it again in the future, and it's one I hear occasionally as I'm out and about, and it's the apparatus question, the response question. How come when there's some sort of emergency or ambulance call, all this stuff shows up? Do we really need all that equipment?
Well, that is a common question throughout the nation, and there always seems to be in the public's mind an overkill of equipment going to a call. But keep in mind, when the 911 caller calls in a dispatch and says, my family member's having difficulty breathing, that could be anything from indigestion to a full-blown heart attack with maybe CPR needed shortly after. So we have to send the appropriate amount of equipment and personnel. That's key, the number of personnel to be able to affect the incident and mitigate it appropriately. And that's why I asked Matt to be here, because he's the person that, he's a paramedic, and out of sometimes the 5 people at a scene, he's the only paramedic that pretty much runs the scene, and he's going to show us all the different responsibilities of all these people so they can, the people, the community can understand why we send so much equipment and people.
So at a typical call then, how many vehicles, how many people would show up? I call 911. I think my mother's having a heart attack. Send somebody right away.
Sure.
What happens?
You're getting an engine company with 3 personnel, and you're going to get an ambulance with 2 for a total of 5. We're talking about, let's say, a chest pain call. My job on scene is to diagnose the patient. I first want to establish the rapport with the patient. They're not calling because they're having a good day. They're having a bad day. It's important we establish that rapport. Also, time is very important. We want to quickly and efficiently diagnose the patient so we can give them the appropriate treatments. With that being said, I'll establish the rapport with my patient. I'm strictly basically on what I'm doing is investigating what's going on by asking questions. While I'm doing that, one individual is assigned to vital signs. Heart monitor, blood pressure, that's what they're going to be doing. Another personnel is going to be giving oxygen. Oxygen is very important. Get that going right away, get the blood flow moving. A captain on scene is making sure the scene safety is number 1. So we want to make sure everything's safe. He's gathering important information, medical history, medical allergies, and another individual is the medication. This is kind of the go-getter. I'm going to need this out of the ambulance, or I'm going to need this medication. Can you get that set up for me? So we all have an important role, and it all comes together. So it's important that I focus on that patient and that questioning and hear them out, so I can treat them appropriately.
So I think you know already. I think you've opened a lot of eyes of folks in terms of what's going on. Because here's something. You're let's say you show up by yourself with the ambulance, and I got to go get something out of the and you leave, and in the meantime something has happened to this patient. Now you got to reassess and reevaluate the whole situation all over again, right?
Exactly.
So the idea is the level of care is so much better.
Absolutely.
When you have enough personnel to deal with this.
Correct.
And then step it up one more notch. While he's on scene assessing, all of a sudden the patient goes into full arrest, and now we have to conduct CPR. Again, things shift, and another steps have to be taken, and more people involved.
But wait right here. I got to again go get something out of the truck.
Yeah,
right.
No.
Not a good idea. Certainly not a high level of care for the person who is afflicted. Plus, I think I guess in a typical call, it's someone's home, but that's not necessarily the case all the time. You don't know where you're going or what you're walking into or anything else. So just for the safety of the firefighter, the more the merrier.
Right. And our objective is to try to bring the ER. We want to bring the emergency room to that patient, and from there, I'll determine the severity of the nature of the illness. If personnel aren't needed, by all means, they can break away. We can handle. But we do need the gurney inside. Things need to be set up and care for the patient appropriately. So the gurney, like you were saying, if there's only 2 personnel, the gurney takes 2 to operate, to get it up the stairs or into the house. Now, if I establish that rapport with that patient, and now I have to leave to go get the gurney, I'm now abandoning that patient. Now we're talking legal. So we're really what we want to do is just give 100%, throw everything we have, and determine from there And a lot of times we need more than 5. But
Right.
we want to adhere to our mission statement. That's, to reduce the impact of the emergency.
Well, and I said this kind of jokingly, if it was me, I want as many people as I can have there to
Right.
assess my situation and provide a lot of care. My neighbor, maybe not so much,
Right.
but everybody should get the same amount of care no matter what.
Absolutely. Now, we haven't even got to talking into. Now we need to get the patient from where they're at to the ambulance. I don't want a patient with chest pain walking. That's their cardiac output is reduced already. We want it better than when we found them.
Now you arrive on the scene and here's someone complaining of chest pains, and as the chief said, it might be gas. Who knows? But
Absolutely.
I mean, at what point do you say, or do you ever say this? Look, you're okay. Get up, or is it always transport?
We have diagnostic tools, but we're also, that being said, we're limited on what we can actually give them. We don't have an X-ray machine with us. We can't check their blood levels. I can look at their heart rhythm and determine if they're having a heart attack or not, but that sometimes too is not even going to tell me. So really what we're trying to do is we're going to try to get everybody to go. They call 911. I'm not going to make somebody go, but there's this best case scenario. Let's rule everything out. Let's get you to the hospital, get you checked out, and we need the personnel there to move them from point A to point B.
So, and we've come a long ways with paramedicine. I'm going to date myself and you as well. Before he was born, they had the show Emergency when Gage and DeSoto and the squad started the whole paramedic on the fire department industry. And back then, they had that large radio that he'd flip open and get on the phone and he'd talk to the emergency room doctor. And before this paramedic could do anything, they had to get permission from the ER to do this or to administer this type of medication, this dosage. We've come so far now that as a paramedic this day and age, Matt has a lot of latitude to be able to just go ahead and do this, administer certain medications, etc. But like he said, the captain's checking to make sure there's no allergies so that we can move forward, so that there's less downtime of them having to contact the emergency room other than saying we're on our way with this type of patient.
Cool. Well, I think, again, we'll be asked this question again and we'll answer it again and again, but just in the last 5 minutes, I think we've really kind of explained why we need that kind of response. And again, if it was me or my mother, my wife, I want as many people as I can get there to take care of them. Now, you're at the home, let's say, how quickly does it take you to decide, we need to get this person out of here right now? Or, give me a kind of a time frame of how things go, quickly or slowly, depending on...
It's real dynamic. It's a lot of times spending the extra time on scene will actually benefit the patient. We need to make sure maybe an IV is established, some medications have been given before we move them. And other times, like say traumatic incidents, vehicle accidents, we're dealing with a golden hour. We need to get them from where we found them to that emergency room as quickly as possible. So we're going to be moving a little bit faster. So really, paramedicine's very dynamic.
There are some of that they term scoop and run. Like give an example of one of those where you come on scene, quickly grab the patient, like maybe a drowning with a child. Sometimes they want to get on the road as quickly as they can and get them to the hospital. But that's their call.
Right.
Well, it sounds like a pretty darn exciting job.
Absolutely.
There are certain calls, very few, that are, and we determine them, complex medical aid and simple medical aid. The complex require the ambulance and the fire engine company responding. People need to understand there's 4 fire stations in the city, and only 3 of those 4 have an ambulance. So it's important that we have that group of people going at one time. Some of the simple medical aids, which are very rare, certain type of indications, maybe a broken arm, broken finger, those indications will say, okay, the dispatcher can send just the ambulance alone, but that's all. And if you look at outlying cities that don't have fire paramedics and ambulance transport, the private ambulance is responding along with that fire engine from that department. So it's the same response, but again, we work together at the station, etc., and we own it from beginning to end. So,
and I don't know if you guys can answer this question or not, when should or shouldn't you call 911? Because it's kind of a joke, some of the things people call 911 for. Everything from they left the pickles off my hamburger to my son is being a pain in the butt to I'm in full cardiac arrest, help me.
The obvious ones, like you said, you know, we've heard those on the news of reporting about a woman calling concerning her hamburger.
Right.
That's a perfect example of abuse of the 911 system. She's taken a valuable time where the dispatcher, we talk to somebody else that wants to get connected. But we always say, if you're in doubt, just call 911. The dispatchers, they're state of the art. We have some of the best dispatchers, you know, nationwide, and they'll quickly assess what needs to be done. Sometimes it's a matter of, we'll send a police officer out there to check it out. Sometimes they'll call, they smell gas outside. They'll send an engine company without lights and siren. They'll go there and they'll check out their gas meter and see if it's a problem. Then we'll call PG&E. But if in doubt, just call us.
And it's against the law to make, I guess, false 911
That's
calls.
right.
Is it a felony, a misdemeanor? It's not good.
It is not
You can
good.
get in big trouble for
And they
doing
should.
that.
And they should. We've had in the history sometimes people that abuse the system, and we follow up and, you know, try to correct it.
Great. Well, thanks. That's really good information. Now let's talk about last weekend. We had the ceremony to commemorate the 10th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks in New York and Washington and Pennsylvania. And Matt, I know you were very involved with putting that together. So why don't you talk about, you know, the genesis of that and how it all worked out and how you felt the event went?
Sure. Just 9/11 is something we all remember. Everybody, it was a life-altering experience for everyone that was old enough to remember it. We all remember everything, where we were at, what we were doing, and it was a huge impact on this country that, you know, it's not only on firefighters, police officers, but on everybody. So it was important that we remember that time, remember that not the towers falling or the negative side of it, but remember those who gave so much, lost their lives, and honor them in that respect. And we want to do that on the community level, because as a country, I think we've become stronger in a lot of ways, but we wanted to reach out to the communities. We're all here together. Let's remember this day in our history together.
Well, I think the thing that really came out of that, well, there's a lot that came out of it, but one of the more important things is it really kind of brought the country together, you know.
Absolutely.
And it's unfortunate that we can't, it takes tragedy like that to affect that kind of action, but you know, it is what it is.
Right.
And I'm not trying to make light of this, but how old were you when it happened, Matt? What were you? You were sitting in your desk in 6th grade or something, right? No, it wasn't quite. Okay.
I was 18 years old.
Oh, okay. All right. Just not
18.
trying to be funny.
I was an adult.
Yeah, okay, you count. You're legit. But so tell me about the ceremony we had here in front of the police department.
Sure. Just had members of the community come out. We made a few addresses on the impacts of 9/11. We did a last alarm bell ringing ceremony, which is very traditional in the fire service, to honor those who we've lost. Basically, it's a send off for them. And we had a few. The Chief Preciado spoke. We had Police Chief Ward speak, and we had a couple very talented group, the Honeybee Trio, singing the national anthem, and there was a lot of good response out of it. But I think the real message that was sent was that we had the solidarity of the uniformed personnel and the spectacle itself, not so much what was said at the event, but the solidarity of we stand together.
Yeah.
And I think the community, as you looked out, everyone's standing together.
And we talk about that a lot on this show, Chief, about the importance of you know, not just the people in uniform, but the community and everybody kind of, you know, why it's important to recognize that effort and why it's important that we all kind of work together to make things better in our community. And I think that might be that ceremony might be the epitome of what that's all about, isn't it?
Yeah, we need the community support to maintain our vigilance and also to be diligent in being prepared for any type of attack. You know, okay, so it happened in a large city like New York. It could happen anywhere. You know, you go back to the attack on Pearl Harbor, when President Roosevelt was addressing Congress, and he referred to it as a day in infamy. You know, 9/11 is a day in infamy. We should never forget that day. I honestly believe there were a lot of firefighters and police officers going into that building knowing they weren't going to come back out. And that just blows me away. As an incident commander in a fire, and I'm sending him in, I have to assess, do I send him in or not? And sometimes, for me, there's no building worth anybody's life, but if there are lives in there to be saved, I have to balance that. He is not a sacrificial lamb, but again, that's our job. And at times, yeah, you have to go in and make this save. And they train for this all the time on how to quickly get in and do that. So, you know, and that was some of our message that day to the public. Don't forget us. Remember this day. It's very important to us. It's very important to the country.
Right.
Because we were attacked, our country was attacked initially, and most of the time it doesn't involve firefighters or police officers, it's just the military. And here it was, police officers and firefighters going up to risk their life and sacrifice their lives for others.
Well, it was such a strange day. I mean, as you said, Matt, everybody remembers where they were when it happened, and I think, you're just so stunned at what you're watching on TV that it's hard. It was just hard to even imagine what was going on and what was taking place. And
I was coming on duty, the main station, where there were about 20 guys there. We're in the, normally we're out in the apparatus floor doing exchange, and we're all in the TV room, and we're watching this, and we, as the second tower collapsed, you could hear a pin drop in there. It was so surreal. We couldn't believe, is this really happening?
Well, I heard some discussion recently, there were only about 1,000 shows kind of recapping what took place 10 years ago, and there was some discussion about whether it was the right decision to send people in, and I just sat there for a moment and thought to myself, okay, first, what if I had to make that decision? What would I have done? And secondly, what if I was one of the people that was asked to go in? What would I have done? And I still haven't got an answer.
And at that time, it could have been just a routine high-rise fire. You remember years ago, a plane was flew into the Empire State Building. It had held up. I don't think anybody there at that time, anywhere, conceived that those buildings would collapse. So as a routine high-rise fire, you bet. They go up the stairwell and they save lives and get them out and they put the fire out. And that was their mission. Yeah, to sit there and second guess whether they should have done that or not, I'm not even going to go there. Let's just not forget what happened and keep it in our memories.
Right. Well, I know that the event was very well received and we had pretty good turnout.
It was an excellent event.
And it really kind of showed what kind of community we have here in Vacaville too, both in terms of the citizens and our public safety folks too. So it was a nice job, Matt. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, now let's talk about the end of the fire season. So the fire season's over, summer's over, right?
Not quite.
No.
Well, structure fires are year-round, obviously, but the wildland season, it's just kicking into gear. And I just want to remind everybody, maintain diligence in keeping a good green belt around their home, keeping the debris and clean around their house to allow us a good opportunity to defend their home. But when you get into October and even especially November, the weather changes, it dries out, we get the north winds, it's warm, it's the perfect condition for a firestorm. And that's when, if you remember, most of the large fires took place in Southern California, in Oakland, etc. So, no, when I see rain coming down and it's cool in December and the moisture's up high, then I could say, yeah, it looks like fire season's over. So that is.
So we got a few more months to stay vigilant and
absolutely
pay attention to what's going on around our community, our neighborhoods, and even in our homes. So, great. Anything else you'd like to add?
Yes. In discussing the apparatus and the people we send to emergencies, there's been some questions recently popping up about, well, why do we send our people out in the community in that expensive ladder truck or in those expensive fire engines? Well, first of all, the ladder truck is manned at the Orchard Fire Station 71. That's their district. They are assigned to that ladder truck at all times. So when there is a heart attack in that district, the Medic 71 and Truck 71 respond. They don't go in a pickup truck. If they were to go into a pickup truck and while on scene, as soon as they mitigate the incident, the ambulance is taking the patient to the hospital, now this ladder truck is in service. And oftentimes there's subsequent calls that take place while they're out there in the district. They respond immediately. Imagine if in a pickup truck and your mother's having a heart attack or a fire. Say, sorry ma'am, we'll be right there. We got to run back to the station, switch out our gear, and get in a ladder truck so we can respond to your fire.
Right.
They have to be in that unit at all times. They're out in the district. They're out there doing pre-fire plans. They're doing inspections. So they have to be there ready to go at any time.
Well, it goes back to the whole hindsight is 20/20 thought, where, and as I mentioned earlier, when you get the call, you don't know where you're going to, and
Right.
I mean, you kind of have an idea, but you don't know, and there have been many times where where we've had firefighters and others at events or meetings, and they get up in the middle and just leave. They get a call. They don't go back to the station. They have the truck with them. They hop in the truck and off they go. So it's kind of a hazard of the job that you need to be ready to respond wherever you're at any time.
And more importantly, it's the expectation of the community that we have a quick response time. And we can't meet that expectation if they're not prepared to respond immediately.
To go, right, yeah. Well, I don't want you going back to the station to get your hose and your turnout, and then, 10 minutes later, well, hang on, Mark, we'll be right there, just stay out there with your garden hose. No, the quicker you get there, the better. I mean, it's all about response time. I mean, every year we hear a report on response times, how you did versus the standard versus, so clearly that's the mission to get there as quickly as you can.
That should be the mission.
And that's as you said, I think that's what people expect.
They do.
They don't want to call 911, get put on hold.
Yeah.
They want to get told, we'll see you in 15 minutes.
That's right.
I need somebody here right now, and off you go.
That's right.
Like it or not. So, okay, terrific. Again, anything else, or have we covered it all, Matt?
I think so.
Great. Thanks for taking some time out of your day, and
thanks for having me,
and kind of filling us in on the process. Fortunately, I've never had the paramedics respond to me, and
it's quite an experience.
Yeah, that won't happen for some time. So I'm really totally in the dark in terms of what happens on a call. So I think a lot of our viewers will appreciate your information too. So, Chief, again, thank you too for bringing this young man onto our show.
Thank you.
And that's going to do it for this episode of Fire Facts. Thanks for watching.
Gosh, you're good.